Dear students, it is Shobha, Assistant Professor from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, and I'm going to present distributed mutual exclusion in this video today. So, to start with, actually, let me brief you of what we are going to discuss in this video. Okay, so we are going to see what actually is distributed mutual exclusion, and we are going to see what are all the algorithms that are available that handles this distributed mutual exclusion, and also we are going to take one of the examples, and we are going to see how it actually achieves mutual exclusion. So, to start with, so what is a mutual exclusion? See, normally when we have processes running, okay, when we have several processes running and they all have a shared resource, and when they are trying to enter the critical section, all the other processes must mutually exclude from entering their own critical sections. So this is what we have to achieve normally in any synchronization environment. Okay, so here, how is a distributed mutual exclusion different from a normal one? Is because here in a distributed environment, you have a lack of shared memory, and also you don't have a common physical clock. That is, normally in a distributed environment, you have several systems which are placed globally, and they are all independent to each other. So the clocks here and the clocks there, the physical clocks may be different, so you cannot come to a conclusion based upon the physical clock. So you need some other kind of clocks, say suppose logical clocks, to help you with in a distributed environment. So, and also in a distributed environment you may have message delays. Okay, so that too unpredictable message delays, because they may be globally apart. Okay, so these are all the things that actually makes it complex to achieve mutual exclusion in a distributed environment. And also we need to have the actions performed by the user to be atomic. So whenever you have a concurrent access to the shared resource, okay, so you need to serialize them, and also you should ensure integrity, and this in a distributed environment is normally difficult to achieve. Okay, so this is a problem. So ultimately we need some algorithm to solve this issue. So there are several mutual exclusion algorithms which have been proposed, and they are also classified into several categories. But before we get into those discussions, let us see what are all the requirements that the algorithm should satisfy. Okay, so, what are all the requirements that it should satisfy? The first thing is that it should guarantee that only one of the processes enters the critical section, and all the others at that time mutually exclude from executing their critical section. So, this guarantee that algorithm should provide. So along with that, we have some other requirements also, like the algorithm should provide freedom from deadlock. That is, you all know that a deadlock is a condition wherein you will not be able to proceed further. All the processes will think that the other will complete, so that it can actually run for completion, and each and every processes will wait for something to happen, and that something will never happen. So this is a problem with deadlock. Okay, so this algorithm should not actually get trapped into such conditions, and also it should be free from starvation. Starvation is a condition wherein you will be waiting for your turn, but you will never get the turn to enter the critical section. So such a thing should not happen. And also you should achieve fairness. That is, say suppose you are actually requesting for a critical section, you should be given your term at the right time. and it also should be fault tolerant. That is, even in case of failure, so you should be able to have some backup of what to actually do and to come out of that issue. Okay, so that also this algorithm should provide. Okay, so then now if we see the classification. Okay, so we have three classifications here. So the mutual exclusion algorithms are broadly classified into token based algorithms, non token based algorithms, and quorum based algorithms. So token based algorithms are wherein you will have a token, and this token will be shared between all the sites that are involved. Okay, and whoever has the possession of the token will be able to enter the critical section. So such algorithms are classified under token based algorithms. So then what are non token based algorithms? See, non token based algorithms are wherein you don't have any specific tokens, but actually they send messages to each other. Say for example, there are n sites. These n sites will exchange messages with each other, and just by exchanging the messages with each other, they will be able to achieve mutual exclusion. So such algorithms are grouped under non token based algorithms. So there are another class of algorithms wherein you don't have to send messages to all the n sites that are involved. You have to send messages only to a subset of the whole n sites that are available. Okay, so such algorithms are called as quorum based algorithms. So to understand these algorithms, let us take up an example and discuss. Okay, so the algorithm which we are going to take up for discussion is the Lamport's algorithm. But before we get into the Lamport's algorithm, which is a non token based algorithm, let us see how the performance of algorithms are normally measured. Okay, so when we when we see about the performance of an algorithm, it is actually decided based on the number of messages it has to send per critical section invocation. That is, we have to check how many messages it has to send for to enter into the critical section. Okay, so it has to enter, it has to execute the section, and it has to release the critical section also. So for these, how many number of messages it has to send out, because it is utilizing the network for sending the messages. So obviously this is also one of the performance measure. Okay, so and then the second thing is the synchronization delay. So what is the synchronization delay? So delay is, here the delay is the time required after a site leaves the critical section and before the other site enters the critical section. That is, see for example, this is the this is just to show you what is a synchronization delay. So here the site exits critical section. One of the sites involved in the communication, it actually exits the critical section, and now the next site actually enters the critical section. This time gap is normally called as the synchronization delay, and it is represented by capital S suffix small d. Okay, so the next thing here is the response time. Okay, so normally the response time is the time interval a request waits for its critical section to be over after its request message have been sent out. That is, it has sent out a request message for critical section, it waits, it gains control of the critical section, and then it completes. So this time is normally called as the response time. Okay, and then the other performance measure, okay, based on which an algorithm is actually evaluated is the system throughput. So it is the rate at which the system executes requests for critical section. Okay, so we must try to improve the throughput. That is, we should be able to cater more number of requests. Okay, so that also we should ensure. So to make your understanding better, and you send the message, and then after that you enter the critical section, and then you exit. So this time is normally called as the response time, and this capital E is the time of execution of the critical section. The actual time of execution of the critical section is represented by capital E. Okay. So now let us discuss about the Lamport algorithm. As I have told you already, Lamport algorithm is one of the non-token based algorithm. So it communicates with all the other sites through messages, and with that understanding, it enters the critical section. Okay, so every site will have its chance to enter the critical section. So here what happens is, Lamport actually suggested a logical clock. Okay, so as I told you before, in a distributed environment, you don't have a physical clock, or you cannot rely on a physical clock. So you go for logical clocks. So when he went for illustration of his clock synchronization scheme, he actually brought up this mutual exclusion algorithm, and he represented it. Okay, so this algorithm suggests that each and every site, okay, say for example, you are having capital N number of sites communicating with each other, and these N sites are present globally apart, and they are independent of each other, and they communicate with each other only through the network. Okay, so through the network they communicate. So here a particular site at a particular instant may be described as S, capital S suffix I. Okay, say for example, Si is a site, then it has an Ri, capital R suffix small I. So that Ri represents the request set. So what is a request set is nothing but every site maintains a request set. Okay, so that request set has the information of all the N sites that are available globally apart. So only with this knowledge, it will be able to send request messages, okay, to all the sites, so that it can enter the critical section. So then what happens, there is a queue called request queue, which is maintained at every site. So this request queue is to show who is actually privileged to enter the critical section next. Okay, so when we discuss the algorithm in detail, step by step, you will be able to understand the working of the request queue. So now let us get into the working of this algorithm. Okay, so the working of this algorithm is actually divided into the three different phases. So I'm going to explain it in three different phases. The first phase is wherein um, it actually tells you about how to request the critical section. So the next phase will we will see how to enter into the critical section, and the last phase is wherein we see how it actually releases the critical section, because these three things are very important in this. Okay, so whatever algorithms we discuss for a mutual exclusion, okay, so we will deal it with these three phases. Okay, so what happens when you request a critical section? Here is nothing but, say suppose Si wants to enter the critical section, then it actually sends a request message to all the sites in its request set, because you know that they are all maintaining a request set. Okay, so it will send message to all the members in the request set. So the request which it is sending out will have two values. See, one value is the timestamp, and the other one is its identity. So one is the timestamp and other is its identity. So this timestamp is to tell that which site is actually privileged to enter the critical section. So whichever site is having the lower timestamp will be enabled to enter the will be privileged to enter the critical section. So the next value is its identity, because to show that it is the system that which is privileged to enter the critical section. With an illustration, you will be able to understand better, which I have shown it to you in the next slide. So the next part which we have to see is what happens when the other sites receives a request message. Say for example, SI is sending the request message and SJ is receiving the request message. So once when SI receives a request message, okay, so it actually places in its request queue. Okay, it places the request in its request queue, and it also checks for the timestamp of SI. Okay, so now just see here, what happens is S2 is the first one to initiate the communication. So it wants to enter the critical section. So what it does, it is the first one which has started the, initiated the communication. So the timestamp is 1 here. So 1 comma 2. 2 is its identity because it is S2, because it is site 2. So 2 is its identity and 1 is the timestamp. Okay, because this is the first message ever to be transferred in this whole communication. Okay, so this message, request message, reaches both S1 and also S3. By the meantime, S1 has initiated a communication, that is, it has sent out a request message 2. Okay, so what happens here is the timestamp here is 2, comma, it is its identity. 1 is the site 1's identity. So this is what happens in case when you are sending out request messages. Okay, then what happens here when you send out messages, okay, request messages, you have to look for reply messages. If you are the one who's leading, that is, if your timestamp is the lower timestamp, you will receive the reply message from all the other sites in your request set. Okay, so what happens here is, see, this S2 has sent the message and here this S1 is checking. See, the site 1's timestamp is 2, whereas the site 2's timestamp is 1. So this is at the top of the queue, and so this is the one who is privileged to enter the critical section. So this S1 decides that and sends a reply message. By the meantime, S3, who has not yet initiated any request for the request for the critical section, also receives the message and it also sends a reply. So when it receives reply from all the other sites in its request set, S2 enters the critical section. So this is the second phase wherein you execute the critical section. Now S2 is actually executing the critical section. Okay, so what am I supposed to do when I have to release the critical section? Okay, so what I have to do to release is nothing but after I exit the critical section, that particular site must remove itself from the top of the request queue, and it sends a time-stamped release message to all the sites which is involved in its request set. Okay, so to just illustrate that, just see here, S2 sends a release message to other two sites. So when S1 sees this release message, okay, so now it knows that it is the next one in the request queue, so that it will enter its critical section. So this is how mutual exclusion is actually achieved in Lamport's algorithm. Okay, so regarding the performance of this algorithm, okay, so it requires 3n-1 messages per critical section execution. That is, when it has to enter into the critical section, it must send n-1 request messages. Then after that, it has to receive n-1 reply messages. And after it has completed its execution of the critical section, it has to send n minus 1 release messages. Okay, so overall it needs 3 into n minus 1 number of messages for every critical section that it has to enter. So this is the performance of this Lamport algorithm. Okay, so and the synchronization delay here is represented by capital T. And so if any algorithm is discussed, normally we will try to optimize it. So how can we optimize it is because sometimes when you see yourself at the top of the queue and the request message that which you receive from other side, if that is higher, then obviously you need not send a reply message to that particular side. Rather than you can avoid sending that reply message. So by using this technique, you can reduce the number from 3 into n minus 1. Okay, so and this optimization may vary between 3n minus 1 to 2n minus 1 number of messages. So the other algorithms we will discuss in the coming videos. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you, students.